Also did that. Greetings. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm going to try to stick with a consistent schedule. I think every Friday upload will be fine for me. But other than that, in this video, I want to talk about some of the 2021 anticipated releases for next year. And I just have to say, I've been researching for a while actually. And in 2021, we are going to feast. Like, there are so many debut authors of color coming out. There's so many interesting stories and perspectives that are coming out next year. And in this video, I just want to share a few of the stories that really stood out to me. Hopefully it doesn't get too long. I only have 16 books on this list, and I have my notes here, so if I look away, I'm looking at my computer notes. And so yeah, let's get to it. I'm gonna sort this video out by genre, so if you really only want to look at things genre wise, you can just skip to that part, because I don't know how long this video is gonna be. We'll see. But yeah, so I'm going to start with romance. So for romance, I am looking forward to Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins. And if you don't know who Beverly Jenkins is and you like romance, like, what are you doing? So this lady, she's a black woman and she's pretty much legendary in terms of creating these stories with black female protagonists who are usually very strong, and it's always in a historical setting. So not only is it just a nice sweet romance, you're also getting some historical accuracy in her books. This year I read her book Rebel, which was the first in her series called Women Who Dare, and I really loved it. It was just so sweet and nice. It wasn't super sexual, it was just good vibes. You're just seeing a strong black woman with a black man. It's just black love, and I definitely want to pick up the second book in the series, which comes out in February. Wild Rain is about a black female who's a rancher in Wyoming, and she meets this guy and they don't really set out on the best foot, and this story kind of follows how they fall in love. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. The next book in the romance category that I'm looking forward to is Honey Girl, which is by a debut author of color, Morgan Rogers. And I remember adding this to my list when I first heard about it, because not only was this a romance that followed a black female who was in her late 20s who's pursuing her PhD, so it's kind of like me, but it's also a queer romance. And I think a lot of the queer romances that I had known about originally were targeted towards YA, or they were erotica. So I was very curious to see this, and I'm really looking forward to it. The cover is just gorgeous, and I followed the author on Twitter and she's super funny. So I'm really looking forward to reading her work. So the next category that I'm going to get into is literary fiction. And so the first book in this category is Black Book by Matteo Ascaripour. I really hope I said his name correctly. But this one was unexpected, because I was just looking and researching through books the other day, and I saw it was a debut book that was coming out in 2021, and I was reading the synopsis, and it's basically like apparently Wolf of Wall Street meets Sorry to Bother You. It follows a black man and his entering into the workforce in America, and it's satirical. And I think this story is very relevant to me and where I am in my life right now. I'm about to enter the workforce soon, and I don't know. I know it's gonna be a little funny, and it's a black author, a black character in New York City. I really want to check it out. I think it's going to be really funny. This book on my list is The Transition Baby by Torrey Peters. And this story is kind of an observation of women, the life of women through not only cis women's eyes, but also trans women. I believe the author of this is trans, so this is kind of an own voices in a way. And it basically follows a marriage of women, but one of her partners wants to detransition. I think that's a very interesting perspective in terms of like the trans experience that I have never really seen addressed in media. So I really want to see this, because I think it's a very interesting take that I haven't really seen when it comes to this experience. The next one is Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson, which is another author of color. You're gonna see this list is just filled with diverse takes because we are just going to eat so good in this year. And also, I don't know, I just kind of naturally go towards more diverse picks of people experience that are like mine or different from mine. And yeah, like a lot of authors of colors in this list, so take notes. But Open Water is basically about two black artists in London who fall in love. And I saw that and I was just sold. Not only that, but the cover is just gorgeous. I think this is going to be great. There's also, and I think through this book I could see kind of the commentary of, or the experience of black people in the UK, which is an area that I want to travel to and perhaps possibly work in one day. So I really, I've always wanted to read more about black British people and their experience. And yeah, I think I can get that from this book possibly. And the last book in this category is Dear Miss Metropolitan by Carolyn Farrell, and she's a debut author of color as well. And I was read the blurb for this book, and it's comparable to Colson Whitehead's The Nickel Boys, which is on my TBR. I haven't read it yet, and I've seen a ton of good things about it. A lot of people have read that book, so I kind of live under a rock. But yeah, this book sort of this follows three women that go missing, and once they're rescued, there's one more that is nowhere to be found, and it sort of follows not only those two women that were found, but the other people surrounding them in their search to find this woman. And I just think the premise alone, as well as the fact that I think it has a very interesting format in terms of Farrell's prose, or just her way of like writing the story, that also kind of drew me to it. So yeah, that's on my list to check out. The next category now is historical fiction. I don't read too much historical fiction anymore. I'm very particular about my historical fiction, especially because I feel like a lot of it is very kind of Eurocentric in a way, and I just don't really like. We hear all about Europe all the time and the World War II and all that. I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, I do care obviously, but I'm just like, well, I don't want to read about that in my free time really. So hopefully that doesn't offend anyone. I'm just being honest. But yeah, so both of these picks are interesting to me. The first one is Wild Woman in the Blues by Denny S. Bryce. And okay, first of all, the cover just drew my attention because you see a black woman in a flapper dress, like, hello, give that to me, please. And it's centered around, it's on two timelines, it seems. It seems that it focuses on 1920s experience in Chicago for black people, and then there's another parallel to it in 2015. And I think it's because one of her family members is interviewing her in 2015 about this experience, so kind of an similar format maybe to like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's giving me that vibe. So yeah, I want to check that out because I love the 1920s. That's one of my favorite time periods to read in terms of setting, in terms of like historical importance and significance. And so yeah, the next story is Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, who is, again, one of my favorite authors ever right now. And this, okay, her premises are always so interesting. I'm pretty much at the point now where I'll read anything by her, because this story is set in the 1970s in Mexico, and it's a noir. And first of all, I don't really read crime stuff like that. Like, I do, but not really. But I'm just drawn in. I have good feelings. I have high expectations because it's her writing this. But brief synopsis: there's two protagonists and they're trying to find this missing woman, and they have to like work together. And I think the guy is kind of obsessed with the woman in this whole thing, and maybe there might be some romance here and there. But yeah, 1970s Mexico. I'm here for it. Let me give it to me. The last genre that I really want to talk about in this video is sci-fi and fantasy, and I was just looking at this like, there's so much. I was never, like, before this year I was never a sci-fi reader or science-fi or fantasy reader, so this is kind of embarrassing, but there's so much good stuff coming out. So the first on the list, Actually, all of these, if you haven't noticed, have been going in chronological order of release date. So the first one, this will come out February 2nd, is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. And okay, so this is like a space opera. In order for there not to prevent an interplanetary war between the two protagonists, there's an arranged marriage and it's queer. And I'm just like, wow, that's really out there. And I'm here for it. We're getting traditional tropes, but now they're queer. Like, that, yeah. The blurb also said it's comparable to Red, White, and Blue. And I haven't read that yet because I just personally am not really interested in like UK British like royalty stuff, so that's my reason why. But I know a lot of people like that book, so if you like that book, maybe you should check this out. And not gonna lie, the cover of this book reminds me of one of my favorite K-pop videos of all time. It's one of the big reasons why I want to buy it, because I'm just like, that video, it's that video. The next book on my list is The Conductors by Nicole Glover, and I'm getting some Octavia Butler vibes and the Dresden File vibes from the blurb. The blurb says it, but yeah. And so basically it follows a character or a lady who used to be a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and now she's settled in Philadelphia post-Civil War, so Reconstruction, one of my favorite time periods of history. And she solves like crimes, and there's some fantastical elements supposed to be involved here, and I'm like, yes, let's do it. Oh my god, I love the cover. Yes, black people rise up. Anyways, so the next book on my list is The Route of Ice and Salt by Jose Luis Zarate, and I heard about this book from Sylvia's Twitter, and pretty much anything she's like involved in at this point, I'm just sucked in. This was originally in Spanish, and I believe this was a Mexican vampire novella, and it's been translated into this story, and it's basically following Dracula and his voyage to Europe. And just, okay, first of all, vampires, yes. Two, it's translated literature. I really like translated literature, and actually one of the goals of my channel is to read a lot of translated lit and like recommend that to people. And two, it's gothic. I love gothic fiction, and it's queer. So see, who wouldn't want that? This is already sounding perfect, and it comes out in the beginning of the year, so cool. Book on my list is C.L. Clarke's The Unbroken. I remember when this was announced and they posted a snippet of this somewhere. I don't know the website, I'm gonna have to find it again. But yeah, I read the snippet and I was hooked. So basically it's a North African inspired fantasy, and it follows a soldier and a princess, and they don't really like each other, but they have to work together to save whatever there is to have to do. And I'm sold. I also believe the author is queer and black, so representation, good. So the last three books on my list. So this one is The Chosen and Beautiful by, I'm not gonna say her name right, I'm so sorry, but it's Yivo. But I know she's came out with a few books prior, like this year and before, that I really want to check out. But this one already like drew my attention to it because apparently it's kind of a spin on The Great Gatsby, but it's an Asian American, and it's queer, and it's like there's some fantastical elements in here as well. It sounds like it's gonna be amazing, and also it's set in the 1920s, so that's right up my alley. The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, an Indian-inspired fantasy, and it's the first in a series. Oh, also, god dang it, okay, so I also forgot to say that The Unbroken was also the first in a series, but I mean, I'm gonna put all the Goodreads links at the bottom. But yeah, so The Jasmine Throne, this is the first in a series, and it follows a princess and a maidservant, and you know what that means. Do I even have to say what that means? It's so basically, I get some enemies to lovers vibes from this description, but apparently they also had to work together to save the empire, even though they're originally on two opposing sides of some sort. And maybe that sounds a little similar to another book on this list, but you know, I just really want to support authors of color, especially if it's fantasy, because I I love fantasy, and I love to see fantasy in settings that are untraditional, and I'm seeing that a lot lately. So I just kind of want to keep going with that. And the last book that I'm really expecting, The Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. Listen, the reason why I haven't read Jade War yet was because I have to wait till September for Jade Legacy. It's the conclusion of the Green Bone saga, and if you haven't read Jade City yet, please, God, please do it. It's amazing. I've convinced like 2 people to read this book already. I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically like like gangs, and it's set in an Asian inspired country, and you have this thing called Jade, and it's like a superpower like stone, and you have fighting. And Fonda Lee herself was a previous martial artist, so you can tell that from the fight scenes. Oh my God, just please check out the Greenbone saga. It's ending next year. uh, please, it's so good, and I cannot wait to read that. I'm gonna get it as soon as it comes out. But basically, I already know the stakes are high because the Jade War already, which is the second book in the series that I haven't read yet, the stakes are already high there. So yeah. And that concludes the books that I'm looking forward to next year. I believe those were 15 books. Yeah, 15 books. I hope to have more consistent content coming to you guys soon. I've been doing a lot of reading. There's reviews that I want to do. There's also stuff that I want to put on my blog if you guys blog or read blogs. So yeah, thank you if you stayed around to watch this whole video. Perhaps comment, like, and subscribe if you want to. I'm going to keep making content. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you maybe soon.